Hi there, I'm Bob Hepp. I'm the owner and chief flight instructor at Aviation Adventures. We're a flight school in the Northern Virginia area. We've currently got 5 locations, about 55 instructors, and about 43 airplanes. And even before this interesting year of 2020, we found ourselves facing some challenges that the COVID pandemic just exacerbated. And so we came up with some solutions to those challenges that I want to share with you because most likely you're facing the same kind of challenges that we were facing. First off, with staff standardization. Mostly as we got larger and more spread out, we found it was more and more difficult to keep our instructors teaching our students the way that we wanted them taught. That is using the same standardized procedures. With the COVID shutdown, that just exacerbated things because it got our instructors out of the cockpit for about a 2-month period of time. So in that time, they weren't sitting there studying their procedures. They weren't keeping their instructor skills and piloting skills sharp. And as we started implementing plans to gear back up into full operation, we found the need to knock some of that rust off on our instructors' skills. And again, as we grew, got larger in number, in locations, in the programs that we were teaching, the standardization problem grew right along with that and became increasingly challenging. Together with that, when we were bringing on new hire instructors from the outside, not the ones that we trained right here, but the new instructors that we brought in, it was difficult to evaluate their skills. We had been using an aircraft, going out just doing a very, very small sampling of procedures or of maneuvers, but that just gave us a very small insight into what they were capable of. Then lastly, we were using airplanes to do that. That was expensive. It was hard to get on the aircraft schedule. If an aircraft went down, the weather was bad. There were multiple problems with that. So rolling that all together, we sought a way to solve some of these problems. We're going to talk about instructor standardization first. We broke down our standardization programs into the 3 ratings that most flight schools instructors may have. And for the CFI, we rolled in the private and the commercial single engine maneuvers, double I, obviously the instrument procedures, and then for multi-engine, the multi-engine procedures that go along with the multi-engine programs that we've got. Within those entire set of maneuvers, we selected maneuvers based on their degree of difficulty, and then also on maneuvers that we taught in a specific way that may be different from the way that most or some other flight schools may teach it. So based on that, we developed a scoring sheet, which is a instructor standardization sheet that broke down even further the procedural steps for each maneuver, put into as condensed a wording as we could make it so that we could fit it all into one sheet of paper. Then we gave our instructors unlimited time to prepare for this standardization ride, unlimited time in the Redbird. And the results were pretty amazing. The emphasis now is on procedural compliance instead of the precise control, realizing that the AATDs are fantastic tools, but they're not exactly an airplane. So we wanted to make sure that our instructors were teaching the same maneuvers the same way across the board so that we could get a standardized results from our students. Knowing that the AATDs are not the best at takeoff and landing training, we reserved that for the short field takeoff, soft field takeoff and landing, and the power off 180 for the aircraft. As we came back from the COVID shutdown, after the AATD-based standardization training, we then went to the airplane and did at least 3 takeoffs and landings in the pattern to include the power off 180, short and soft. And that got the 3 takeoffs and landings to get the instructors legal again to carry passengers. And then also became the basis for putting it together with the AATD standardization. That was the basis for our Part 141 annual proficiency check. So it all starts with the procedures. Your school very well may have its own set of procedures. This is one maneuver in our procedure sheet. The actual details of the procedures are not the important thing that we're going to talk about today, but it's just how to get standardized across the board with your staff. So if you want to take a moment and take a look through the way that we teach steep turns, again, there's no right or wrong way to do it. There's just so your students are successful, that's the important part. And just so your instructors are teaching it pretty much the same way. So if you take a look at this one, I've got one more maneuver for you coming up on the next slide. We're going to actually see this in action inside our Redbird FMX with one of our instructors. Another maneuver that you're going to see today is the emergency landing, and we use the ABCDE method. And then also just to point out within the checklist and the exit, these are done as a flow, much like the airlines use. So taking these procedures and the selected maneuvers within each program, we came up with a CFI standardization certification sheet that has a place for the instructor's name, the assistant or chief instructor or the assistant chief instructor, and the date, the name of the maneuver, and then just a real quick summary. Again, the objective was to try to get all of this on one piece of paper, and we just barely did it. We pressed the margins right to the edge. And so this is the grading sheet. So as the instructor is calling off these individual items, it makes it very easy for the evaluator to sit there with a pen and just slash through them. And we'll show you a completed grading sheet at the end of the video that we're about to see. So this is the one for the CFI. And then we've also got one for the II and the MEI. And what we found is that if you've got the setup is prepared, the instructor and the evaluator are all tuned up, it takes just a little bit over a half hour to run through the CFI, and then about a half hour combined to go through the II and MEI. So not much time invested at all. So let's take a look and see what one of these standardization sessions look like. And I'll let you know up front, Abby Welsh is one of our check instructors. She did her instructor CFI and II, as well as her multi-engine training here. And she volunteered just a couple of days before to record this video. And she did that. This was all done in one take. And I did ask her to intentionally insert some mistakes in here just to see if you're on the ball and you're going to catch them.
Hey, Abby, today's your annual recurrent standardization ride. You feeling ready?
I feel good.
Okay. Got anything to prepare?
Yes, I looked over our CFI standardization certificate that you sent out to all of us.
Okay.
I feel ready.
All right. Super. Remember, the emphasis is on the procedures and not necessarily on the precise control of the airplane.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind.
All right, let's do it. All right, Abby, you're lined up on runway 34 left at Manassas. It's a clear day. Runways, the winds are coming right down the runway at 340 at 13. And so the first maneuver we're going to do today is a short field takeoff.
All right, thanks, Ron. All right, so we're going to line up at the end of the runway. We're going to have flaps 10 degrees. Line up at the end. We're going to bring our gust Our control way back 1 inch. We're holding our brakes. We're lined up on the runway. Our lights are on. Camera action. Traffic and time. Holding our brakes. Gonna fly full power. Maybe. The brakes don't work. Engine is to the green. Airspeed's alive. We're gonna release our brakes. Airspeed's alive, at least 2,300 RPM. At 50, we're gonna rotate. Put 15 degrees nose up. A little bit more abruptly than we would on our normal takeoff. There's 100 feet. We're gonna lower that nose. Coming through 60 knots. We're gonna pull our flaps up. And we're gonna put our nose right on the horizon. Using that right rudder, and we're gonna continue our climb.
Okay, as Abby is climbing out and heading out to our training area out there, I'm just going to scoot the video forward a little bit. And she's going to be getting set up for a steep turn, a commercial level steep turn.
Need to do an actual clearing turn, but just call out the things that you would do before a steep turn. And let's do a commercial level steep turn. Starting with the turn to the left.
All right, we'll do. So our pre-maneuver checks, we make sure our fuel selector is on both. Our mixture is rich, our lights are on. We would do our clearing turns, ask our passengers to look for traffic. What we're gonna do is we're gonna set our power at 2,100 RPM. And we're gonna pick a point out on the horizon. I have a great mountain in front of me. And I also have that heading bug, 240. All right, 2,100 RPM is going to bring me down to 95 knots. This is where I'm going to start this maneuver. So I'm doing commercial standards. We're going to be looking for 50 degrees of bank. All right, getting slowed down here. We're nice and trimmed. All right, one last look for passengers to look for traffic. Bring that power back to slightly. All right, one last look for traffic, and we're going to turn, add power to 2,300 RPM, and two things, a nose up trim. Oh, it doesn't like that. So one, the sim doesn't like a lot of trim. Two. All right, so I'm going to continue. Scan for traffic, adjust my bank as needed. Keeping that scan going. Oh, a little too much rudder there. All right. So what I'm doing is I'm looking for 20 degrees before. I'm going to smoothly lead in with that opposite rudder. And I'm going to look for 50 degrees the other way. A little more rudder. And really watching my altitude. There we go, adjust that power slightly. Oh, the sim is a little sensitive. All right, so I've lost some altitude so I can take out some bank. Pitch up as well. And looking for 50 degrees of bank. And 20 degrees before, we're going to roll out. We're going to get out that 2 turns of trim so we don't balloon up, and we're going to pull our power back to 2,100. Then we should be on our entry airspeed, altitude, and heading.
Okay, what Abby's going to get into next is slow flight. I'm going to get towards the end of the slow flight sequence here. And so that you can see the transition from that we're going to make from slow flight and then right into a power off stall.
Continue in slow flight.
Okay, let's go to 20 degrees of flaps.
All right, we're below 85 knots. Flaps are 20. And we're going to keep adjusting to hold our airspeed and altitude.
Let's make a right turn to a heading of 060, maintain 2,500 and slow flight.
Okay, 060 we have bugged. One last look for traffic, and we'll start that turn. And making sure we're staying nice and coordinated here as we continue this turn. I set 10 degrees of bank, 65 knots. I'm a little high, so I can continue to adjust my power. Okay, there's the edge of our heading bug. We're going to smoothly roll out.
Okay, let's go to full flaps.
Okay, we're still below 85 knots in the wet arc. We're going full flaps, and we're going to take out one more turn of trim.
The right turn, we're heading of 120.
Okay, 120. You can see I'm getting a little slow, so I'm going to lower that nose before I start that turn. One last look for traffic, lifting our wing. And we're going to start that turn. Again, you can see I'm getting slow, so I've got to lower that nose some. If I'm losing altitude, I need to add that power. Pitch for airspeed, power for altitude. And nice and shallow bank, slow movements. Okay, and there's the edge of our heading bug.
Okay, that completes a clearing turn, Abby, and we're all configured. Let's go ahead and set up and execute a power off stall with a turn to the left.
All right, sounds good. Again, like you said, all our pre-maneuver checks have been done. Our airspace is clear. What we're going to do is we're going to 65 knots. We're going to lower that nose, put in our bank, and smoothly pull out that power. Once we start that descent, we're going to keep that just about 15 degrees of bank, put the nose right on the horizon. And there's a stall. We're going to get nose down, right rudder, flaps up, 20 degrees right away. Above 70, we're going to get flaps up to 10. And we're climbing away from the ground. Again, above 70, we're going to get the rest of our flaps up incrementally and continue to climb. Nose on the horizon.
Okay, go ahead and level up at 2,300
Okay.
and set up for a power on stall straight ahead.
Okay, power on, stall straight ahead. So we've done our pre-maneuver checks. Our airspace is still clear. We're going to set our power 1,500 RPM. Still have a point outside selected. We're going to hold our back pressure here and let our airspeed lead down. Again, this is our takeoff stall. So we want to get to our rotation speed. So we'll wait for the aircraft to slow down to 55 knots. I'm going to pitch back to hold that altitude, and at the same time that airspeed will bleed off. At 55, I'm going to add that full power, a lot of right rudder, and stalled right away. Nose down. We already have full power. Hold up that airspeed, and we're going to climb straight ahead. Well, just on the horizon, a little bit too much nose up there. And climbing away from the ground.
Okay, nice. Go ahead and do an accelerated stall with a turn to the left and just call out that you're clearing turn.
Okay. Okay, our pre-maneuver checks have been done. Our clearing turn is complete. We're going to set power 1,500 RPM. All right, 1,500 RPM. We're going to hold our altitude. We're going to look for 70 knots. Okay, one last look around for traffic. At 70 knots, we're going to put in 45 degrees of bank and a lot of back pressure. All right, there's our stall, nose down, wings level, full power. And just like before, we're going to put the nose right on the horizon and climb away from the ground.
Okay, go ahead and climb back up to 2,500, Abby.
Okay. There's 50 feet before.
Okay. And we're going to do some unusual attitudes.
Okay.
And you're going to get yourself into unusual attitudes.
Great.
So if you would, go ahead and close your eyes.
Okay, my eyes are shut.
Okay. And let's put in a climb pitch.
Okay.
Let's bank to the left. Okay, recovered.
Okay, in the ground, shut it down. Power's half back, wings level. And then we'll bring up the nose on the horizon. And once we're at a safe airspeed, we'll add our power. Back to cruise and continue to safely get away from the ground.
Okay. And one more time.
Okay, my eyes are
And
shut.
eyes closed.
Yes.
Let's bank to the right. And let's pitch out. And recover.
Okay, in the blue, push it through. Full power, nose down, then wings level. And we're just going to put that nose right on the horizon. We're at a safe altitude. And we'll wait for airspeed to get back up to our 100 knots. Okay, there's our 100 knots, and we'll pull back our power.
Okay. Let's go ahead and do a chandelle to the left.
Okay. So we've done our pre-maneuver checks. Our clearing turns have been done. We'll start this maneuver at 3,000. All right. So we're going to look for 2,300 RPM, 105 knots. I have 180 degrees off my left butt. I also can pick an outside reference, a distant reference point as well. All right, to the left, 105, we're going to bank 30 degrees before climbing and say set. And we're going to add full power and gradually climb to 18 degrees nose up. So we have a constant bank and a changing pitch. Okay, set, there is 90. Now I'm going to keep that bank where it is and slowly take out, keep that pitch where it is and slowly take out that bank until I'm right at 180 degrees, just above that stall speed. And I'm going to lower that nose and recover with losing as little altitude as possible. Okay, I'll let that airspeed continue to build back up. Gain 800 feet. Okay, there's our 100 knots. We're going to smoothly pull back our power to 2,400 RPM. Just at our altitude that we're at right now. Sounds like we possibly lost our engine.
Darn.
All right, so during the engine failure, so A, B, C, D, E's. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pitch for my best airspeed and get 3 turns of nose up trim. I get to 68 knots. Okay, B, best place to land. I'm going to check to see if there are any airports nearby. which there is a small grass field, possibly just 1.2 miles from me. I'm going to start turning there. C is checklist. So I'm going to make sure my fuel selector is on both. My mixture is rich. I could test my throttle. My fuel pumps I would turn on. Magnetos I'm going to check. That doesn't do anything. I'm going to switch over to my Squawk 7700. And I'm going to declare an emergency. So I declare Mayday on my local frequency or Potomac and let them know how many souls on board and where we're landing. And then E, I prepare to exit. I'm going to pull my fuel shut off out. I'm going to pull my mixture out. I'm going to turn my magnetos off. And I'm going to wait till I've used all my flaps, except I don't think my flaps are going to work right now, and done talking on the radio until I turn that master off. I'd brief my passengers and we'd open that door as well. So I see a field in front of me. That's where I'm going. Wind. So I want to land into the wind, which I have that wind bug. So I'm essentially on.
Okay. So first off, I want to thank Abby Welsh for a great performance there. Also thank Daniel Schwartz, who helped edit all of this, Sean O'Brien, who did some of the photography, and Carolyn Hunker for putting this all together into the presentation. So the standardization sheet is made so that the evaluator can just slash through each of the things as the instructor calls it out. Can then easily circle things that were not stated or not done correctly, and those can be the basis for a debrief at the end of it. Once again, I'll point out that Abby did this on short notice. She did it with one take. There was no repeat shots on any of this. And she did insert some mistakes in there intentionally just to keep things interesting. So that can be done to overall just elevate the level of standardization within the school. So things that we expected to get out of this were, after the COVID shutdown, it was a means to get the instructors into the cockpit faster. We could put them through standardization training in the Redbird much faster than in the actual airplane, much less expensively as well, not worrying about weather or other maintenance issues. And then we thought that it would elevate the level of standardization. And we were a little bit wrong about that. It really boosted the level of standardization within the school by quite a bit for quite a few reasons. Some things we didn't expect. We identified some staff instructors who were not fully authorized. And my chief instructor at Leesburg is, that's not why his picture is next to that bullet item. He's one of our chief instructors who's been with us for quite a while. But it did identify a few instructors who were not as standardized as they may thought they have been. It increased the level of cooperation between instructors. So as some instructors were finding it challenging to attain that level of standardization and others were not, the ones who had it down were getting together and spending extra time in the Redbird, getting the instructors up to that standardization. We weren't looking to use this as a means to weed out instructors. The whole objective was to get everybody up to a higher level of standardization in the school. It did, as we thought, increase the procedural compliance among the instructors. And in some cases, we found that some of the check instructors had let it slip a little bit, and some of the people who were not check instructors really rose to the occasion and shined. And so in some cases, we found some new check instructors that were doing a better job for us in the standardization area. Little competition between instructor groups at the different locations is never a bad thing. It was an opportunity. I did all of the initial standardization rides. It was an opportunity to provide some coaching for instructors that I don't see as often as the ones that are at the location that I primarily work out of. One of the things we really didn't expect was our Redbird usage went through the roof after this, because I think the individual instructors who had not realized the utility of the Redbird just rediscovered it. And it's to the point that the instructor that I've got that's in charge of instructor recruiting, hiring, and training can't find time on the Redbird now to get those functions done, and we'll talk about those in just a moment. The other thing that we didn't really see coming was this is a fantastic preparation for our instructors who are planning to move on to charter or airline interviews and training, because this is modeled exactly like the airlines do. Some airlines still do use simulators in their hiring process, but they all use simulators for initial and recurrent training to very, very standardized procedures. So this gives our instructors a leg up when it comes to taking that next step in their career. So how do we use it for hiring? When an instructor is first being considered for a job here, one of the first things that we do is send to them a copy of our procedures. And we tell them that there is going to be a simulator ride, and that the emphasis is going to be that they demonstrate our procedures in the AATD. And what we mostly want to see is that they can adapt to however they were doing things before, because each flight, each instructor maybe has a different way of teaching things. That's great. That got them the ratings that they currently hold. But what we're interested in is we want them to teach things the way that we teach things across the board. So we want to make sure that they can adopt a different set of procedures. We get to see how the instructor teaches and what quality of instruction they provide, and their willingness to adapt to new procedures. And we can do that at a drastically reduced train-up time and train-up cost. Instead of taking up our time once we hire them to then standardize them, they can get themselves standardized in preparation for the simulator ride that comes with the job interview process. So let's take a quick walk through what that process looks like. First off, we get a resume from somebody. We review the resume, decide if we want to go further from there. Next, we do a phone interview. We ask them about their experience, their successes as an instructor, how many people they've signed off, what kind of aircraft they've got experience with. And then we bring them in for a face-to-face interview. As part of that face-to-face interview, they give us a ground lesson. We choose, give us a lesson on constant speed propellers. And then at the end, we give them the practical checkout in the Redbird, using the same exact procedures that you saw Abby going through on the standardization ride. So they must get through the previous phase to get to the next phase. So it's a little bit of a process, but again, it's very much like the airlines and 135 operations use in their hiring process. So it gets our instructors ready for that environment. So the sequence is that in December, January, we start ramping up our interviews and hiring process. We hire throughout the year, but we especially start ramping it up in December, January timeframe, so that we've got people lined up for the next major event, and that's our Cfi University. We hold that on the third Sunday of every year, hoping that the weather's going to be bad on that day, so we don't bring all the instructors inside for an all-day event when they could be out flying. And at CFI University, the morning is spent covering school policies, TSA required training. We bring the DPEs and the our FAA primary operations inspector in, and have them talk to us about trends that they've seen with our students over the previous year. And then in the afternoon, we spend the entire afternoon with the instructors doing standardization training. And so one instructor is selected to teach the private, the instrument, the commercial, and then the multi-engine, one instructor for each of those presentations. Then at the end, we have a quiz for all of the instructors. So that gets everybody tuned up into the procedures and gets an open discussion, gets all of the flight schools from, or all of the flight instructors from all of our locations together to really start to fine tune those procedures. In March, we do the recurrent standardization. And again, this is the first year for us. So but this is the layout. So the standardization is done at each location in the Redbird with a designated check instructor. And then in March and April, we do the 141 proficiency checks in the aircraft. And then it starts all over again. So that's just offered to you as a way that we've decided to meet the challenges that we have. Many of the challenges that we have are probably ones that you share as well. You're welcome to take advantage of any of this. I hope it was helpful. As I've asked the DPE that we use quite a bit for when we have students that are done under 61 or outside of the examining authority, to say a little bit about what he thinks the results are.
Hi, I'm John Somiak. I'm an FAA designated pilot examiner in the Northern Virginia area. The use of the Redbird AATD is very important in establishing and promoting standardization of procedures and maneuvers in flight schools, such as aviation adventures, and is key to the success of the school and the organization. The results I have seen have been very good outcomes for applicants on their practical tests for certified flight instructor, CFII, instrument rating, and also private and commercial pilots. The AATD is an excellent tool for teaching instrument procedures and other maneuvers. It makes a much better classroom than the airplane. Overall, a very strong performance by the flight school thanks to their use of the AATD Redbird.
So again, I hope you found this helpful. I hope it can take some of these tips and things that we've developed away and help your flight school that may be facing similar challenges. If you've got any questions or suggestions on ways that we might improve things or the way that you do it, I said all along, I'll steal anybody's good ideas and happy to do it. Please feel free to contact me at nightowl@aviationadventures.com. I'll answer as many as I can. No promises that I'm going to get to everybody, but I'll do everything I can to get back to you and hope we can work together to raise the level of flight instruction that we can provide to our people.